Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We are going to take you on the Talroo journey of not only implementing a process, but a system that's helped them really scale and turn a churn problem into a growth opportunity. So today it's expansion through the customer lens, but let's get to know a little bit more about Barry and Andy. Andy, first of all, I should say, I bet everyone in this room can admit that they picked up maybe one or two bad habits during COVID, but we also picked up some good ones. And then because of the theme of this whole event, durable growth, I asked both of them to share what's something that's been durable and that you've kept through COVID, through the economic chaos, and that you still love and are doing that's healthy for you today. So Andy.
Yeah, Emilia. So for me, there's a couple things that came out of the pandemic times for myself and my partner. One is, in terms of durability, we started a victory garden. I know we're not alone in that. We were a bit frightened about food security. And so we developed a garden in our backyard, and my partner and I still do that today. The second thing was, as Denver mentions, I became a digital nomad. So hit the road, saw most of the western half of the US, about 20 national parks. It was incredible. One of the things I took away from that experience was really being present, being in the now. I think we often get to a place where we're always looking towards the future, and we get so busy, we often forget to appreciate the current moment. So it's a couple things that I took away from that time.
What about you, Barry?
It's funny when I compare my experience with Andy's because I feel diminished because of the pursuits that where his passions are. Whereas in my case, I learned that I'm really good at being home. And actually, back to my daughter, we did great through the pandemic. And it was a lovely time to enjoy each other and to not worry about the influences of the outside world. I think I came out of it, to quote not Seinfeld, but The Big Bang Theory, where Sheldon once said, well, I could do that, but it doesn't sound like something I would enjoy. And I've become, quote unquote, a little more selfish. Life is too short, and I'm not going to pretend about where I want to be and who I want to be with. It reflects itself in everything right down to our day-to-day work. I'm grateful and blessed that I enjoy my coworkers because life is just simply too short to deal with things you don't enjoy. So yeah, it really reinforced that for me.
That's great. And I can say, given that my team has worked with the Talroo team, all of your team and ours love working with you. So the feeling's mutual. All right, so today we have an exciting agenda. We're going to take you way back to August 2022 when Barry identified some challenges his company was having, and then we'll take you through his people, processes, and systems, and share with you some really tactical things that they've done. When Nick Mehta looked at our presentation, he came back to me and said, Emilia, I need to see more tactical things that the audience can take away to their own team starting tomorrow. So that's what we're going to show you. And first, let's start with defining and positioning your churn, not only the moment of aha, but how do you tell your leadership that there's a problem and you're at the head? Barry.
Thanks, Emilia. Going back a year and a half, Talroo got into, as many folks tried to accelerate after the pandemic, we were in a hyper growth mode. You fast forward to 2023, and like many, we probably hired too fast and we had to correct some of that. But back in those heady days, we were growing like a weed. We were hiring salespeople and we were signing, I'll say it plainly, every customer we could. And that's not always a healthy thing to do. We also took several members of my team from customer success, and we decided, and I endorsed this, I actually proposed it, that we create a team of national account managers who moved into the sales organization. So now you have a hyper-growth sales organization signing up customers without all the due diligence that should occur, and with national account managers who've been thrown into the mix, and we were moving too fast. It was in August of last year when, it's funny when, as Emilia said, how do you approach your executive leadership? I was looking at reports and I knew this was coming. And in the hallway, I said to our CEO, can I see you for a minute? And we walked into an office or into a conference room, and I said, we're bleeding to death. And I said to Andy, I don't know if I should say that publicly and if we're being recorded because I don't want Thad to see that. But those were my lines. We're bleeding to death. And in a sense, we weren't, because what we realized was that a large part of the problem was this idea of signing any customer who would do business with us. We are in the business of selling job ads. It's much more sophisticated than that, but you can think of us in the same space as an Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Career Builder. Very different approach, but that's what I tell my mother what I do for a living. I sell job ads. And we had to reinvent what we were doing. We had to correct the mistakes that had been made, and we had to rally around getting back on the right track. That brings us to November of last year, when my CEO in our Tuesday morning executive meeting, suddenly I was quite on the hot spot. And what happened was, and to all credit to my CEO and our executive team, there was a rallying around the problem. We knew that signing customers only to lose them was a waste of money, a waste of time. It was a morale downer for my team. And we took a number of steps to bring the NAMs back into my organization, to reinvent how we sold to customers, to reinvent do we really know who our ideal customer profile is, and really starting to make retention begin from the discovery call. And to get that kind of alignment was very gratifying. And ultimately, as we'll talk about more today, started to yield very positive results. And quickly so. It takes time, but we're on the right path.
All right, so hold the thoughts. Andy, hold your thought too, because this is going to be a very interactive session, and we are going to do a poll. So bring out your phones and let us know how many of you can identify churn proactively with your current tech stack. We'll give you a moment so you can answer.
Well,
we'll give it one more minute. I'm glad everyone knows what churn means. I interviewed someone not too long ago, and I asked him to tell me about his experience with churn, how he handled it. And it was for a CSM position, and he asked me, what's churn? And I thought, you might be in the wrong room. All right, well, I'm glad that at least 50% of you are actively working to identify churn. So that's great. So we've talked about setting the scene where we were at here at Talroo. I've been working with Talroo for a couple years now, on and off. And is there anything else that you want to share or add, Andy, about the catalyst for change?
I'll just add one other quick thought and then turn it over to Andy. One of the debates that we would have internally was what were the key factors in our churn. And it really boils down more than anything to two things. One is we are absolutely dependent on key performance indicators. In the business that we're in 2023, where every dollar matters, we are being held accountable to an employer's cost per hire. If the cost per hire is out of whack, we get fired. It's that simple. We're on month-to-month contracts. We get fired. Number two is our integration and our positioning within our employers' organizations. If we only know one point of contact, we're dead in the water. That person leaves, the next person doesn't see us as strategic, we're gone. So those contacts and having our influencers is vital, and making the KPIs is absolutely vital. And those were the things we really started to focus on through all the processes that we started to implement.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is from an individual contributor's perspective, our CSMs were, and still today, consistently having to justify our partnerships with our customers. As Barry said, we are in job ads, and so with any advertising or marketing campaign, as I'm sure we all know, there's a revenue lag. It takes time to get things up and going, to get the traffic you need, to work that traffic through your funnel, very much like a sales funnel. Our team is constantly having to do that. And so when we kind of looked at churn and expansion through fresh perspective, we recognized that we needed to give the team more tools to be able to combat that, those indicators of churn, and to do so proactively. So those are some of the things we'll get into in more detail throughout this talk. But I would say from an individual's perspective, we listen to the team and we're putting tools in their hands to help them do that effectively and efficiently.
All right, so now we've gone all the way to December. Your team is on board. You've got budget, right? You have your CFO in your side of the court. Take us through what happened around December timeframe.
Sure, if I may, Andy, why don't you kick us off, because there's several hidden messages in this image, by the way.
Yeah, so if anybody in the crowd is familiar with Austin, you might be familiar with this bridge. It's the iconic 360 bridge. And so we chose this image for a couple of reasons. One is in this talk, we're talking about bridging the gap between churn and expansion. And so we'll get into those details. Our office is basically here at this part in Austin. We're maybe a mile from this point. So it's impactful for us. Also, a plug for C360, right? We're trying to create a 360 view of our customers' journey, their experience with us, and how we can mitigate churn. So for us, it was a meaningful image to bring into this slide. So a little background there.
And we took a, dare I say, 360-degree view of solving this problem. Again, with all credit to the extended leadership team, we have a project underway in engineering right now because we identified a key flaw in our solution, which quickly to describe is that if you are doing job advertising and you give us all your jobs, but you give us a budget that's too small to allow each of those jobs to get enough traffic, to get enough clicks, to get enough applications, all you've done is spread out your money so thinly that you're not going to see any results. And there are certain jobs that we know we're going to be more effective with. We call it the application density problem. And actually, if you look at some of the latest news from Indeed, you'll see they're solving it in a different way as well, but it's sort of the same problem. You have to invest enough to get a response. Our engineering team is looking at how can we determine from a customer's inventory of jobs, what are we going to be best at? Where should our system decide to invest the dollars? That had never happened before. Similarly, working with our sales organization, we have a unique situation where a senior director in our sales organization is now basically partnered with me and with our organization, and we've crafted a deal desk. And the deal desk is this particular director, a senior member of my leadership team, and a few other members of the ops teams. And they are evaluating the opportunities that come in. Do the salespeople always like it? No, they don't. But we have basically crafted a real-time customer success qualified lead program. If Jess, who's my representative on the deal desk, doesn't buy in, the deal doesn't go through. That has created exactly what we've wanted to, which is getting us the right kinds of customers. So we have engineering working on things. We're partnered with sales. And of course, within our own organization, we restructured and we retrained and we started to focus on the KPIs that matter the most.
I wish I had a deal desk when I was leading customer success, so that's fantastic. I want to now turn over to what you did. Let's get into some of the tactics around people, process, and systems. But back to you. We have a question for you. We want to learn from you. Can you identify currently key moments in your customer's journey that are leading to renewals? Give you a moment to answer.
It's fun to watch the bars go up.
It is. All right, so it looks like, well, the numbers are going down. I was going to say the majority of you are, but a good mix. All right, well, moments that matter, especially over a cohort and over a period of time, definitely can give you great insights into what churn will look like and growth. So next, we're going to talk about building the right team and relationships internally so that you get buy-in. I think anytime you want to change anything at your organization, build anything, you have to start with internal communication and really get buy-in. So Barry, talk to us about your team alignment.
Yeah, it's thanks, Emilia. I've mentioned some of it already in the form of the deal desk, but and sales and that connection. But also part of the issue of getting the right focus on an organization that has always been engaged with our customers. We've never been anti-customer or that somehow this role doesn't matter. But you sort of have to speak in the language of the manager or executive who you're speaking to. So when we were seeing our churn problem at mid-year, how it was really manifesting itself was flat revenue, because we were basically washing and spinning new customers for old ones. And so our revenue had flatlined. That sort of jumps out to your CFO, right? Especially when we had been on a growth path. 1 or 2 months, maybe no one gets concerned. 3 or 4 months gets everyone's attention. And then you start to look at those root causes. Even things around the reporting that we created. There was a gentleman who was part of our CFO's organization who actually now is part of my organization, so that we can get the reporting and the real-time feedback that we need in order to make decisions and see how we're progressing towards our goals. So it's funny to think about it now and say it out loud, because I don't know if you guys sometimes feel this way, like in any given day or week, you don't feel like you've accomplished anything, but then you look back and you're like, wow, we've come a long way. And we really have. We've come a long way with the interrelationships, the partnerships internally, and even our own team. Building, I'll let Andy talk about some of the individuals and how that plays together. But our CS organization, and one of the topics that was already brought up in the keynote, and there's talks about it this week, which is, should revenue be a part of a success organization? Well, yes, it is. And for us, it is. But we're not farming salespeople, right? Our hunting salespeople are hunters, but the national account managers are not farmers. And this was a change when we brought the account managers from sales into my organization, because if you had asked our vice president of sales, she would have defined their job as chasing the money. Well, of course she would define it that way. She's the sales vice president. The mantra within my organization is, you got to keep them before you can grow them. If they leave, what good do they do us? We have to keep them before we can grow them. And the only way for us that we can grow them, because we're not high-pressured salespeople and we can be easily dismissed, is we have to earn the right to ask for more money. We have to earn, and we don't say it that way. We earn the right for a greater investment. We earn the right to say, if we're performing better than your other sources, do you have budget that you might want to allocate to us? We have to earn the right. Otherwise, it will just fall on deaf ears. And that's a different skill set. And you have to have the people within the organization who have that in their heart, who are motivated by that, who find joy in that. As opposed to, again, the stereotypical account executive who, you want to kill a deal, get a big commission, and move on. That's not us.
Yeah, I would just add, Barry, that for us, it's really important as we were going through this process and again, kind of bridging the gap between churn and expansion. And we're still doing this and building this, but for us, really taking a holistic 360 view of our customer's journey, right? So that includes all of the departments, of course, that you see on the screen. I'm sure many people in the audience are working to achieve this as well, if you haven't already. But for us, bringing the team together was, and it was important to rally around that mission of reducing churn. And the economy we're in today, of course, we all know that that's probably one of the most important topics of today. So yeah, that's what I would add to that. And Emilia?
Great. So let's talk about the right processes. And I do see that there's some great questions coming in on Slido. We are going to answer them throughout, and then we'll leave time at the end as well to answer the rest. So let's talk about your processes. Barry, I think you're taking the first two.
Yes, I'll even look at my notes so that I remember. It's easier for me on the slide. So no, actually those first two that are up are Andy's, to tell you the truth.
Customer journey and onboarding playbook.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. So for us, customer journey mapping, I would say one takeaway I'd love to leave the crowd with is really starting where you're at. I think many CS ops folks, sales ops folks deal with the conundrum of getting clean data into the system and getting reliable, actionable feedback through that system. We were in a pretty, I guess, enviable position where our data is pretty clean. We don't have a lack of data. For us, what the perspective that we took on bringing those data points in was really to understand what happened from the sale on. And so we'll get into some details about the onboarding process and how that influenced our onboarding process for our new customers. And that also then informed pieces of the deal desk that Barry mentioned. It also informed pieces of some of the playbooks that we're going to talk about in just a moment, to provide some kind of real actionable, tactical suggestions for the audience. But some of the main things were really defining major milestones. So for us, it's, of course, closed one. I'm sure that's the case for most people in the room. And then for us, how did we onboard? And so we have, we'll get into some of the details of the health score, but we do track time to value. We'll talk about that. And we start that process of tracking time to value on the kickoff call. And we talk about some of the aspects of our product that we think is valuable to customers, even though considering there's a revenue lag for our product because it is an advertising product at the end of the day. We also brought in the first check-in. So during the first, we have a series of meetings that we have with our customers in the beginning. We really do work to nurture them at a high level within their first 90 days of working with Talroo. And in doing that, we in our first check-in, we reiterate one of our products, which is Talroo Insights. So Talroo Insights is, at the end of the day, a look at supply and demand for job ads. And so the supply piece is essentially showing our customers like-kind jobs that they are advertising versus what's in our ecosystem, and the potential volume they can expect in terms of traffic for their jobs. The demand piece is showing them how much essentially others are paying for job ads. So those are one of the things, it's one of the things that we highlight early on in the relationship to reduce time to value. Again, because we know there's revenue lag with a marketing or advertising campaign. That's one way that we can show customers value right off the bat. And then for us, we ask for a temperature check from our customers every time we meet with them. And it's very informal, it's subjective, we recognize it as such, but we do ask our customers often how they're feeling about their partnership with Talroo. What we found is that it's a prompt to not only get that score, but more importantly, understand why they've given us that score, whether it's a 1 to 5 scale. That feeds in, that 1 to 5 scale feeds into the health score. Again, it's an opportunity for us to ask our customers to essentially justify that score. And so we do it at the beginning of our performance reviews. And we found that it prompts that conversation and really allows us time to dig into the why. If they're happy, we want to know why. If they're not, we also want to know why. Either way. So, yeah, just some of the points that.
And that's, and I just want to, as we talk about, then we take all that, we put that secret sauce in. One of the things we've really had to teach our team, and we talk about it every day, and it's still a work in progress, is stop listening with happy ears. HR people are nice. So when you say, how are we doing? They'll say, oh, you're doing great. Because we might be making their life easier. They like us. But do we know what the CFO is thinking about that dreaded cost per hire metric? Have we found that out? We have to dig deeper than what our customers often suggest to us. Andy, to his credit, had everyone read the Challenger sale because we needed to get our heads around that mentality of, I say it as, don't believe them. They think they're telling the truth, or they're just lying because they're nice people and they don't want to break bad news to you. You have to dig, you have to listen critically, and you have to be a trusted advisor and a consultant. If all you do is echo back their joy, you're actually exposing us as much as it's a more pleasant conversation to have.
All right, so the next one is connecting your workflows to your outcomes. This is really powerful. Andy built this. He is part of the Gainsight Essentials community, and Tim Van Loo and I were we're meeting, he's at Gainsight, and he said, you know what, when you present with Andy, you really should ask him if he's willing to share his one-pager around lagging indicators and leading ones, and then what are the activities associated. So I want to make sure we stay on track, but Andy, take us through this briefly.
Yeah, so shout out to Tim. I appreciate him challenging that group, that cohort in that way. I found this to be really impactful for us because it really tied together a lot of the activities that we were building in a cohesive way. So briefly, I'll go through a few of these. The activities piece of this, I'll go kind of in backwards order. The campaign optimizations, so we have CTAs and playbooks for campaign optimizations. Again, we do job ads, so when we have early indicators of a campaign that's not performing up to our expectations, there's a playbook for the team to follow and to work on solving that problem. Contact cadence is built into our health score, and so we have contact cadences for each one of our segments: low touch, high touch, and tech touch. We also have a CTA for the next performance review, and this is cohorted as well by segment. We have some budget efficiency reporting that we built into Gainsight as well that shows us if we're overpacing on budget, underpacing on budget, and for our customers, making sure that we have the volume they need to hit their hiring needs. And then as far as risk goes, we do have a risk CTA and playbook that we'll get into those details in a moment. And sorry, looking at the notes here. Those kind of feed into leading indicators. So we aspire to continue to increase our NPS score. We have some baseline metrics that we have gathered from previous years prior to implementing Gainsight. We're working on increasing our temperature check. So again, we ask that at every performance review. We're looking at those trends and correlating those to a persona. And then KPI performance is really the most important thing that we do. When it all, at the end of the day, it all boils down to us performing for our customers. Some key metrics that we look at are cost per application, how much our customer spends to get an applicant into their funnel, and cost per hire, how much it takes for our customers to get a hire. And those are key. All of our metrics, all of our CTAs, playbooks, they're really centered around that idea. To Barry's point earlier, we have to earn the right to ask for more, and that's how we define the right to ask for more if we're performing for our customers in terms of their job campaigns. And ultimately, this is leading to success, right? So the first bullet point on the lagging outcomes is retention. So we're seeing positive outcomes come out of this work, and we'll talk about some of those outcomes as well in a moment.
All right. So last section, we're going to talk about your journey and where you are today and look at some data. But first, one more poll for the audience. Let's learn more about you. Is your customer success team incentivized with expansion opportunities?
I feel like it's Final Jeopardy and music should be playing.
I know, we need music for this.
Interesting.
And I would say just even 2 or 3 years ago, customer qualified leads for expansion definitely it was not a thing to incentivize. So very exciting to see 52% of you are incentivizing CSMs to ask the right questions that lead to expansion. So next, we have about 4 minutes before we go into Q&A. Expansion is a company-wide initiative. Barry, you want to take us through this on a high level?
Yeah, please. We've talked about many of these things throughout, and you'll just see the consistency of the theme. And one thing that I actually have left out and not mentioned the whole time, but Andy was alluding to it, of course, we're using Gainsight, if that wasn't obvious. But when Emilia asked about what we decided back in December, that's when we started our journey with Emilia's help and her organization's help to explore all the CSP providers. We were pleased to see there's not a bum in the lot. They were all outstanding software vendors. We ultimately chose Gainsight and have been very pleased with it. We went live on April 1st, so we are brand new to it. Andy is knee deep in it every day. But we can already see the degree to which it's going to be a game changer. And when we get back, we'll actually be rolling it out to our executive team, to our salespeople, so that they too can enjoy what we are seeing. I'm a little afraid because it is so easy to find the gong calls in timeline now that I know I'm going to be getting lots of feedback about calls that have been recorded, because you just scroll the timeline and there it is. And that's how I spend my mornings now. I actually go through timeline and I review what happened the day before. And it's incredibly effective. And that plays in right with everything else that we've been trying to do to get those KPIs right and keep our customers. And that, Andy, I'll let you speak to this. This is a little snapshot of what we are doing.
Yeah, so we wanted to build in this view to kind of provide some more tactical insights for the audience. So these are two of our, we have a risk CTA and playbook, and we have an expansion potential. And they play together, right? So the risk CTA and playbook essentially looks at cost per application. So we look at our customers' goals and the actual cost per application. If that ratio is way off, there's a CTA that fires, and there's a playbook, and there's some of the action items here from the team to look into and try to problem solve and correct that performance. That plays into the expansion potential because, as Barry said, we have to earn the right to ask for more. If we haven't achieved and solved for this risk playbook, then we're not in a position to grow our relationships with our customers. And so those two things were two of the first playbooks that we built in. For us, you'll see on the expansion potential playbook, the very first thing is essentially, are we performing for our customers, right? That's the first thing we always ask ourselves. We are highly centered around KPIs and how we're performing for our customers, and these playbooks are built around those ideas.
Andy, can you take us through the systems that you're using? And I know Nick Meta bashed on Snowflake, but I won't say anything.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. We are using Snowflake. Snowflake is our data warehouse. It's where almost all of our data comes from. Through the work with Growth Molecules and Emilia's wonderful team, we built connectors with all of these systems. So in Snowflake, we bring in a lot of our customer campaign information into Gainsight. Gong, of course, is calls and meetings. We bring that in, and we're utilizing the Gainsight Zoom integration to be able to bring information into those calls for the CSMs, and so that they can log timeline entries, of course, through that integration. Salesforce is our CRM, and so we get a lot of our customer biographical data for new customers in through that. And this really all comes together with Gainsight bringing in kind of disparate systems. I think the way we described it initially when we were pursuing a customer success platform is that we were kind of Frankensteining reports together and spreadsheets. I'm sure everybody can relate to that. And this system, bringing all these together through Gainsight, has really helped to alleviate that problem for us.
All right, well, let's look at some of your reports over the next couple slides. Barry, talk us through what we're looking at.
Yeah, both of the slides that we're about to show get better with time. And of course, we had to submit these a few weeks ago. What this shows is that on the far left, in the first 90 days, we have lots of active customers in blue. We lose very few in the first 90 days. The next chunk is, I think, day 90 to 120, and then after that is 120 to 365, and then a year later. If you start on the right, it's depressing. We're not keeping our customers for more than a year. But the heartening part of this, with everything that we've been doing, is you'll notice that the middle two tiers, the blue is higher than the yellow. And the blue keeps getting more and more advanced over the yellow. So we are keeping our customers longer through all the efforts we've been doing. And I believe the next slide, Emilia, this is my favorite chart. This ends up in my status report every week. And this has gotten dramatically improved. The yellow line is the number of days that our customers are with us when they leave, because customers will leave. So the number of days they are staying with us before they leave has gone up. And the blue line is the number of customers who are actually going inactive. And you'll see that they are staying longer and fewer of them are leaving. And when I looked at this on Monday, the gap between those two lines had grown dramatically. And that is very heartening to me, and that tells us that we are on the right path. We are losing fewer customers, and we are keeping them longer. And that's to keep them before we can grow them mindset for us.
All right, so final 4 tactics for the audience to take away.
Looking ahead at some of the questions that are already popping up, retention and expansion begin on the first discovery call. If we don't have expectations set properly, if we don't represent our product properly, if we don't have customers who appreciate what we do and how we do it, because we're not a simple job board, things will fail. But during mid-2022, this was a sales call. Hi, we do job ads. Have you ever heard of us? No. But you do job ads? I need help. Where do I sign? And then I would see in our Teams chat, celebrating the one-call close. And I would call my counterparts and say, I hate the one-call close. The one-call close will be gone in 30 days. We're just not a one-call close customer. So that's really where it starts.
Yeah, so for onboarding, again, reinforcing the idea that we need to have realistic goals from our customers. We need to have a KPI. There are customers that we have, and I'm sure people can relate to this, that they don't know what their KPI is, and we guide them through that through industry benchmark data that we provide. And we also work with them to, if our point of contact doesn't know, to try to expand our reach within the organization to get to a stakeholder who does, because ultimately somebody's looking at how much they're spending on our advertising platform and if that spend is effective for them. So that's really important for us in our onboarding process.
All right, it's very exciting, I have to say, that you're including the CFO or the finance department in these conversations. I don't think enough companies do, and it's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
Barry.
And not only are we tracking toward these KPIs, we have a lot of responsibility to get, excuse my language, the damn KPIs from the customers. Because someone will say, I don't know. And we have to gently, in a challenger-like way, say, could you do some homework for us? Because someone in your organization knows the financial KPIs. You may not. It may not be what you worry about every day. But I've seen this movie before, and if you don't get me those numbers, and we don't know what we're being held accountable to, you're going to fire us. And you really like us, it seems, so we don't want that to happen. Please do the homework to go find out what success means, not just to you, but to your executives, to your organization, especially here in 2023. The dollars rule all. So that's something we have to get better at, to have backbone and sort of demand that accountability.
All right, and then last one, expansion.
And this goes back to everything we've said. If we've done these things, we have your KPIs. We've met or improved upon your KPIs. We're responsive in a customer service type way, right? You enjoy working with us. You trust us. We're trusted advisors. Have we earned the right for more budget? Have we earned the right for more investment? And when we do it right, we grow our customers. I don't have my favorite chart. I'll actually end on this because I presented it at the board meeting, and the fellow who I mentioned who's now on my team doing data analytics for me, I said, how do I show the fact that we grow our customers when we keep them? And he built a brilliant chart for me. Going back to January of 2022, 3 bars for each cohorted month of new customers. The first 2 bars are the first 2 months they're live with us. So you see, whatever they started with, maybe it's a little bigger in month 2. The third bar was April of 2023. And out of 16 months, in 13 cases, the April of 2023 bar for the customers we kept was dramatically higher than what these customers had started with. If we keep them, we grow them. And it is being proven out every day with budget expansions, even in this tough environment.
All right. Thank you, Barry and Andy, for joining me today and sharing your journey. Connect with us on LinkedIn. I know you have some questions. I think you answered some of the ones around leading indicators. Are there any other leading indicators you would add?
Yeah, I saw a question around that. So really quickly, our expansion potential playbook is triggered on essentially volume, right? So if our customers' campaigns are trending towards higher volume than their budgets would allow for, that's one of the triggers. The other trigger, and what the team looks at, is if those dollars are performing for them. And so is the volume there, and are we performing? And so those are some of the indicators that go into our expansion playbook.
Barry, take us through number 2 around the deal desk.
So it sounds like the deal desk is the guardian and make sure customers are a good fit. What happens when we disagree? Candidly, I win. The predecessor to the deal desk, and God bless my CEO for anointing me. I don't even know when it happened. Before we had the deal desk, I was referred to as the angel of death because I had the authority. I don't know how and when. I killed deals after they were signed. And imagine how much fun it is to go back to a customer and say, you know that paperwork we just signed and that advertising we were going to do for you? We're not. And that was my call. And that's why I begged for the deal desk. I don't like being the angel of death. 20 minutes before or an hour before we came in for this session, I was on with one of our directors of sales debating a deal. And he convinced me because the deal desk was waffling, and we collaborated, and I said, yes, but here are the caveats I need on it. Here's what I expect of the customer. Yes, we can try to do this. We don't want to be so pure that we deal desk ourselves out of business, right? Some things are worth the risk. But yeah, ultimately, I've somehow been anointed with this authority.
All right, we have less than 2 minutes. Can you answer the next one around cultural buy-in to leave the growth at any cost? I know most of us have been through this.
Candidly, 2023 happened. We started to see it in late 2024. And when the first quarter of 2023, budgets are down. If you saw Home Depot's quarterly earnings yesterday, they were a disaster. I probably could have told you that because I see their advertising dollars for workers. They're not hiring anybody. Things started to slow down. And because we had hired lots of folks who need time to ramp up and need time to be profitable for the company, suddenly the circumstances didn't exist anymore for this organization to be as profitable as we would have wanted to. So yeah, it was a harsh dose of cold water that made us take a much harder look on that part of the lesson. We had already started on the right customers, the ideal customer profiles, the deal desk. That had already all started, but then we really had to scale back from the growth at all costs.
Great. And last question, because I was at JobVite for almost 6 years, ran onboarding for part of that time, I remember how painful it was when customers didn't want to onboard. It was essentially the beginning of churn.
Yes.
So what happens in these instances, Andy?
Yeah, I think so. We have two roles that are underneath Barry's success organization. There's a customer success advisor and a national account manager. Those two teams are tied really closely together. The CSA, the former, you can think of as a technical onboarding role. The national account manager is an account manager. Those two teams collaborate on onboarding. So we have those onboarding conversations as we're setting up campaigns and getting all the technical back-end work done. We start talking about KPIs in those meetings. Those two roles, those two people collaborate on that meeting. So we found that to be a good way to get customers engaged in the onboarding and get their campaign set up correctly, of course, but also gather their KPIs and their success metrics at the same time.
And I'll also add, when a customer does not want to participate, my line is that I can't care more about your hiring than you do. We will have customers who say, I signed my paperwork, can you just set me live? My answer is no, I will not do that, because Emilia just said it. You don't join that onboarding call, I know you're gone. You're not engaged. You're not a partner. You're a temperamental child. So if you're not going to act like a partner, I don't know if I want to sign you up. And then I get to wear my angel of death hat again. So yeah.
I feel like everyone needs a Barry in their organization, and then Andy to lead CS Ops, because I know he's a big star in the accelerator or the essentials community for Gainsight. So again, thank you both for sharing your story. The key takeaway is start with data.
Thank you.